Welcome. What is up? Welcome to This Week in the Mixer, episode 2.32, postseason edition, right? So gonna go over a few things. Want to go over NFL playoffs, NCAA championship game. Then we're gonna go over the DraftKings scandal, Bachelorgate. Gonna talk about the Mandalorian finale. So this is your forewarning. When I say, like, spoilers, if you haven't seen the Mandalorian finale, do not listen to this. Do not listen to this. Just so there's no confusion, like last time.
Anthony.
And then, yeah, we'll probably wrap up with the usual.
So, real quick, I have one question that is still unanswered. I was booted from the chat on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know.
By Sean?
I didn't want to ask any questions, because,
Mr. Big Sim himself?
Yeah. There's some weird glitch in the Matrix. Maybe we were all reset at that point.
Yeah.
And
it was weird because, like, when I usually, like, I'm used to getting booted, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's normal. And usually when I get booted, I know why.
Yeah.
So, like, apparently I got booted. And it wasn't until the next day that I realized, like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
like,
during the national championship game, I think.
It's during the playoff games, I believe.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, I haven't seen anything from the chat in a while. Let me check it. And I look, and I'm kicked out. And I'm like, what?
I know.
So then, like, when I finally get back in, I go back to look. I'm like, okay, I'm sure Sean said something.
Yeah.
Nope. He didn't. He did it, and he left.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I almost asked something, but to be honest, Sean's kind of intimidating me right now. I mean, he's back-to-back champ, and, I may or may not have a short video series on YouTube about, about him being a fraud and, an overlord that controls our universe. So I'm trying not to ask questions, trying to lay low a little bit, but that did raise my eyebrow right away, but I decided to lay low. He's probably just fucking with us.
I'm sure he is, but
it's probably like, hey, watch this. Oh man. And then, like,
it had me shook for a little bit.
Yeah, and then he has some some burner, or is Jake Sean's burner?
Maybe.
Anyway, the evidence is mounting. The weirdness is definitely high right now.
Definitely.
Speaking of weird, let's get weird and talk about the championship game for college football. LSU versus Clemson. As a lifelong LSU fan, I've been waiting a long time for this game. Just a quick recap. Game started off. LSU was pinned deep on a few drives. There was a few big plays negated, or actually there was one. Burrow got a big throw, like, on the first play, and they called that back for ineligible tackle downfield.
Yeah, it seemed pretty quickly like Clemson had the refs on their side.
Yeah, and then so Clemson was winning the field position battle. Then they finally got a touchdown, went up 7-0, and I think LSU tied it up, and then Clemson scored. Got a field goal and a touchdown, was up 17-7 at one point. LSU kind of turned it on from there. They had, what was it? They had like a 9-point lead, I think. Then Clemson got the ball back, got a touchdown right before half, went for 2, got it. And so LSU went into half, only up by 1. And then LSU just kind of turned it on. In the second half, things started clicking. I know Burrow went off the field at one point. I believe that was in the second quarter, which is the quarter that I missed. I tried to watch it on the app this morning to prep for this.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it's our Wi-Fi or it's the ESPN app, but every time I watched like 5 minutes of it, just shut down. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'll listen to Joe Rogan spin some more conspiracy theory webs. Why not?
I'm pretty sure they said Burrow had some sort of rib injury at the time.
Yeah, I heard an interview with him today. He said he tore some cartilage in his ribs.
Yeah, I mean, when you're that old,
you do that.
When you're that old, injuries like that tend to happen.
Here it comes. Old man Joe. He's gonna get the Brandon Weeden tag heading into heading into the draft.
He's not quite that old, but he is older than you would like to see from a top prospect like that.
Definitely. So, I mean, LSU ran away with it. What was the final score? Was it 42-25, or was it?
Yeah, 42-25, I believe.
Yeah. So, I mean, Burrow looked freaking amazing. LSU looked really good the whole game.
Yeah.
I mean, their defense probably gave it more points than they would have hoped, but I mean, they won comfortably, looked dominant. What are your thoughts on the game, Jeff?
You know, going into it during the week, I was talking with a bunch of coworkers, and they asked me, like, I work with a few degenerates, right?
Mm-hmm.
They gamble all the time, and because I pay attention to a lot of stuff, they tend to come to me and ask me my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're asking me my thoughts on the game, and I said, you know, after the first playoff games where LSU just completely boat raced Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
and Clemson struggled with Ohio State, I said I would make LSU probably a 10-point or more favorite going into the final.
That's
then on National Championship Day, my coworker came up. He didn't want to actually bet on the game, so we made a 20 push-up bet.
Mm.
He brought it up. I got him to go. At the time, the consensus line was LSU -4.
Mm-hmm.
He brought up that I said I'd make LSU a double-digit favorite, so we compromised on LSU -6.
Okay.
So he ended up paying me those 20 push-ups.
Oh, there you go.
But I mean, overall, I was a little surprised to see how many people in the chat were against LSU. You know, Randy Moss's son caught 2 touchdown passes for them. He's a national champ. Not as good as his dad, but he's still pretty good. You know, I get that you guys are Alabama fans and all that, but, like, Trevor Lawrence boat raced Alabama. Like, how could you root for that? He's not even in your own division. Right? At least root for SEC dominance. That's what keeps you guys at the top of the polls all the time anyway. Right? If the SEC starts to slip a little bit, Alabama starts to slip a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Sports makes you root for weird things. But yeah, it had to feel dirty rooting for the team that just wrecked Bama last year.
Yeah.
It had to be really tough.
I have one more thing. I know it's a little bit early, but going into draft season, Joe Burrow's 23 currently, I believe. I think he might even turn 24 before the NFL season starts. Compare that to Tua, who's going to be 21 or is 21, and Trevor Lawrence, who's like 19 or 20. I don't think Burrow is hands down the number one guy because of things like that. He also has only had one good year as a starting quarterback in college. And it was this year. It happens to be, you know, arguably the greatest quarterback season of all time in college football. But I think, you know, there are definitely some holes in him as a prospect. And
if there are some holes in him as a prospect, I didn't see it. I didn't see it all year. He looked amazing. He threw 60 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
Oh, I'm not talking about him this year. I'm talking about him as a prospect where they look at the whole body of work, right? Like, we're talking about him this year as a 23-year-old playing a bunch of 18, 19, and mostly 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
it's tough.
That's the concern, you know? The concern is also that he went to Ohio State first and couldn't beat out non-NFL quarterbacks there.
Yeah, well, I mean, Urban Meyer was there, so...
I mean, Joe runs. He fits Urban's mold of a quarterback.
Yeah. I don't know. I get what you're saying with the age thing. There's nothing that he could do to, I don't know, there's nothing he could show that's gonna remove that piece of his profile.
Oh yeah, and
his draft profile.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's not, arguably the best quarterback in this class. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good pro. I'm just saying he's not without flaw. Mm-hmm. Right? He also had never completed more than 60% of his passes until this year.
Yeah.
And he happens to complete 75 or whatever.
He had, yeah. It's interesting. I'm gonna love hearing all the draft evals with him because he only had one season as a starter.
Right.
So
very Mark Sanchez-esque.
Okay.
Although better single season, but like one good year.
Yeah.
You know?
He did everything he could. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like maybe the school is working against him a little bit because he's from LSU. They haven't produced. Have they produced a big quarterback? No. Not really.
At least not in a while.
And I also feel like this may be a bit controversial, but if he were a black guy that could run around like that, and you know what I mean, I feel like he might get a little bit more of a bump than. I feel like he wouldn't be getting knocked, basically, because they see him, they'd say, oh, he's athletic, he can move around, he's mobile, he makes stuff happen on his feet. Yeah, he's a little older, but he did what everything that he could to prove that he could be a dominant force in the NFL. But instead, he's like this pasty white dude who's running around evading tackles, making shit happen on his feet. Maybe that's not going to translate as he gets older, and maybe he's just not as fast. I don't know what like his 40 time is or anything like that. So he may just be more savvy in the pocket and, almost like a young Ben Roethlisberger where he's tough to take down but like shifty, if that makes any sense.
I get that.
As opposed to like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. I'm trying to think, like Aaron Rodgers even is very, well, in his younger years was very mobile.
Right.
Because I know like when Alex Smith was coming out, we're on a first name basis. I don't know if you know, but
yeah.
He took my best friend's sister to prom.
Nice.
Which I mentioned all the time. He was super mobile at Utah, and
right.
I thought he was going to be like Steve Young, and once he got in the NFL, he was just like a pocket passer.
Yeah.
And a pocket check down passer.
So one more thing on Burrow and his age. Mahomes, younger when he won the NFL MVP than Burrow was this year in his best when he'll be drafted. Likely NFL MVP this year, Lamar Jackson, also younger than Burrow when he's probably going to win the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that interesting, right? Like, if the Bengals take a guy that's already older than the last two MVPs were, it's just kind of interesting to me. You don't see prospects that old succeed all the time.
Conversely, I've read Outliers, and they highlight how like all these hockey players that are born in January specifically have an advantage because that's the cutoff, so they're older so they have all this like time to develop and like build up their confidence. One thing I've seen in Joe Burrow that's probably differentiates him from a lot of other quarterbacks is his confidence and his calmness. I've heard interviews with him. He wasn't shook all year, even when they were down.
True.
Rare as it was.
He does seem to have all the tools.
If that will, if he'll be more developed mentally because he's used to succeeding. So,
I hope so. I root for him.
I heard the fucking funniest question this morning on Part of My Take. Credit where credit's due. This is not a This Week in the Mixer exclusive question, but they had Burrow in there like hungover, or actually probably still drunk from the night before,
probably
on like 3 hours of sleep, and they asked him point blank, could LSU beat the Cincinnati Bengals? And
that's great.
He just laughed.
Oh, that's so great.
He's like, oh, I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we'll end on that note and move on unless you had anything to add.
That's all I got then.
Congrats to LSU, go Tigers, and yeah, like I said, lifelong LSU fan, couldn't be happier.
Exactly.
Suck that Tiger. You know what? All right, moving on. NFL playoffs. So I think it's probably best if we just, we got 2 weeks to cover ground on. So we'll talk about the wild card round first. I'm just going to go through the final scores here. So the Texans beat the Bills 22-19. The Titans beat the Patriots 20-13. Vikings stole that game from the Saints, beat them 26-20. Seahawks beat the Eagles. It's hard to even remember that the Eagles were in the playoffs. Seahawks beat the Eagles 17-9.
So, okay, I have one quick comment about the wild card round. And the Saints have been a very good team for a long time at this point. They complain all the time about calls not going their way, about this and about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is 3 years in a row they go out like this, right? Like 26-20. You know, last year they lose on the late pass from Drew Brees that should be a PI. The year before that, they lose on the completely whiffed tackle. Like, at some point, you got to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
And stop blaming, you know, refs, this and that, right? Like, last year, as an example, yes, the PI should have been called. Brees also could have thrown that ball about a second and a half earlier, and there's no chance of a PI on the play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, at a certain point, you got to look inward.
Yeah.
And I think they're at this spot where they got to do that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, that's no fun for fans to talk about, though. You know what I mean?
I get that. I mean, I'm fully with that. But
yeah, they should have made it happen. Luckily, I mean, Saints fans have the one Super Bowl to fall back on, so
True.
It's tough to feel sorry for them.
And they have, you know, arguably the best receiver in the league.
Yeah.
You know, they got Kamara. They got some good things going for him.
Arguably the greatest passer of all time. I mean, he holds all the records.
You can make
currently.
a case.
So yeah, I hear you there. You know, maybe not blow coverage. You know, maybe tackle Stephon Diggs.
Exactly.
Okay, so quick comment on the week as a whole. This was an amazing week of football. The wild card round. I mean, the last game wasn't really that exciting. I can't really even remember what happened in the Seahawks-Eagles game, but oh yeah, it was when freaking what's his name, old man
McCown tore his hamstring.
Yeah, and he got in. So yeah, I unfortunately didn't get to see much of that game, but at least they had you know, that storyline going on. Bills Texans was crazy. Went to OT. The Bills started off, what was it, 13-0. They started the game going.
Yeah, it was pretty rough looking for the Texans.
Yeah, and they couldn't do anything, and then the Bills just got super conservative, shut it down. Texans tied it up, and then wasn't in overtime that it seemed like everybody was playing drunk, like Josh Allen flipping the ball, like, and they had it for it was
rough.
That was insane. And I can't even remember everything that happened, but it was super entertaining. That's been my favorite game so far.
Maybe
you think Texans Chiefs was better?
Texans Chiefs was by far the best game.
We'll talk about that, you know, in a second here. You know, we have the Titans eliminating, killing the Patriots dynasty.
Goat.
Ryan, the dynasty slayer, Tannehill. But really, I mean, that was just Derrick Henry putting it down
Quick side note
Belichick's throat.
I got a quick side note on Tannehill. We're really not on him.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm the New York Jets, how do you not fire Adam Gase? So here's the thing. Tannehill under Adam Gase, not great. Kenyon Drake under Adam Gase, not great. Devontae Parker under Adam Gase, not great. All three this year get away from Adam Gase in some form.
Yeah.
Right? He leaves the team. Tannehill goes to a new team. Kenyon Drake ends up on a new team. All three have career years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you have the guy that's the all-time leader in fantasy points per game, in Le'Veon Bell, have his worst season in like 5 or 6 years. Right? Like, how...
I can tell you how. They're the Jets. They make
I mean, I
decisions.
understand that. It's just one of those things, like, you look at it and you go, man, look at what, like, these guys do when they get away from this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how he still has a job.
Be real sad if you were a Jets fan, but I feel you there. And yeah, it's just really tough scene there in New York for the Jets. So yeah, Derrick Henry ran all over the Patriots. They win 20-13.
Mm-hmm.
We already talked a little bit about Vikings Saints. That was another great game.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks do what they do, win a game where they score less than 20 points, 17-9. No, there's like a stat of I think Russell. It's something like Russell Wilson has the most wins
in one score games or something like that.
No, I think it's for when there's a teams winning like in the teens, like scoring between 10 and 20 points. He has the most wins. He has like a very high win percentage. So, but anyway, not too much else to say on that game. Oh, DK Metcalf went crazy in that game.
Yep.
Won a Bachelorette some money we'll get into. Divisional round. So, 49ers, we got a lot of lifelong 49ers fans in here. They win 27-10. Very boring game. Titans beat the Ravens 28-12. Chiefs beat the Texans. Crazy game, 51-31. And the Packers beat the Seahawks 28-23. We won't really touch on the Niners game. It was good to see Derrick Henry. That was more of just the Ravens not being able to get it going for some reason.
Also, quick side note, the Titans were up 14-0 before Derrick Henry had 20 rushing yards. He put the game away.
Yeah.
But they were already beating on the Ravens.
I was talking to so many people about my Super Bowl picks, and I had the Ravens and Packers actually, and somebody asked me about the Titans, and I just said, I was like, their chances against the Ravens, and I was like, well, if they fall behind, they're fucked.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to be able to.
That's exactly what happened.
And they went up, they went up early, and I was like, and then I don't know. I don't know what happened. The Ravens, maybe their play calling wasn't great. I don't exactly know what the Titans did to shut them down. I guess what they did is they kept Lamar from going north to south and kind of kept him contained, so he could only move laterally. I don't know how they did that with the defensive scheme, but they didn't let him break the big runs. And I don't know if he was just gripping too much. You could see he was pretty emotional on the sideline and in the huddle, but his passes were not looking crisp at all. They were fluttering.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the problem with how the Ravens have built their team. I think they're a great team, but Marquise Brown isn't really known for as a route runner. Mm-hmm. He's really known for a speed guy. Their tight ends are good, but they're also not, Mark Andrews isn't known as a separation guy. He's not Gronk, he's not Travis Kelce.
Right.
And I really think that hurt. Also, they looked like a team that hadn't played in 3 weeks, which is pretty much what they'd been, right? They sat most of their guys week 17. They had the bye, and then they come out to play. It reminded me of Peyton Manning's Colts back when they were winning, 13 games a year. Yep. And they were sitting everyone week 17 and then losing in the first or second round of the playoffs.
That's a good call.
That's exactly what it reminded me of.
And they were missing Mark Ingram, so
yeah,
those option plays were not as big of a threat.
Exactly. Lamar still had a good game, 300 and 100, I believe.
I think he had over 500 total yards of offense or something.
But they also turned the ball over 3 or 4 times, which is something they didn't do in the regular season.
Yep. So Titans move on. Surprisingly, as the 6th seed, they're in the AFC Championship.
Yep.
We'll talk Texans Chiefs. Texans started out 24-0. So what happened? The blown coverage. Kenny Stills gets a deep. It was 40 yards, 40-yard touchdown. And then they block the punt. The Chiefs get the ball back, go 3 and out, try to punt, and then the punt gets blocked. Texans pick it up for a touchdown. Then, what was the next big play? Was it another turnover?
There was Tyreek dropped the punt.
Okay.
That the Texans got.
Okay, and then they scored that way, and then they tacked on a field goal in there somewhere. But they were up 24-0 quick. It might have even been in the first quarter.
It was in the first quarter, I believe. But this was a classic game of one coach misreading what was actually happening on the field.
Bill O'Brien?
And that coach being Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
So whoever was announcing the game mentioned it at the time, but
Tony Romo?
I don't think it was Romo. It might have been. Actually, it probably was.
Yeah, they were the Sunday crew. This is the Sunday game.
But when the Texans were up 21-0 and they were going in for, ideally would have been their fourth touchdown, ended up being the field goal. When it was 4th and 1, whoever was announcing mentioned, they should go for this.
That was Romo.
And
I heard
really,
somebody else talking about that.
Yeah, and really try to make it, 28-0 because the Chiefs hadn't been playing. The Chiefs had a couple miscues, right? They had the fumbled punt return, and they had, the blocked punt or whatever. But the Texans hadn't been stopping the Chiefs' offense. The Chiefs' offense dropped wide open passes on third downs, and so I think you could read it like the Chiefs' offense just wasn't quite clicking, but it wasn't because of something the Texans were doing, right? And so I think. Romo was hinting at, I don't know if they can stop the Chiefs. So if they don't continue to put points up on the board, this could, the Chiefs can come back. They still had full 3 quarters left.
Bill O'Brien definitely makes some suspicious calls. I think it was still the first half. They had the ball on their end.
When they punted, or when they did the fake punt.
4th and 4.
Yeah.
And they ran that fake punt. I actually did think, I kind of like the gutsy play call, but... yeah, it didn't work out. So, I mean, maybe in that stage in your own side when the Chiefs had scored, they should have dialed it back and not gotten so risky because then, not only were they held to the field goal on the drive before, but, I don't know. It kind of woke up the crowd, and then, I mean, the Chiefs got rolling, and it had the lead going into the half. 28-24. Right?
They went on a 42-7 run or something like that. Or really 50. They closed the game on a 51-7 run.
Yeah. Wild. Yeah. Excellent performance by the Chiefs. I mean, they're definitely the heavy favorite to
beat the Titans.
I mean, I guess it's really between the Chiefs and Niners in the Super Bowl, but yeah, they're definitely heavy favorites against the Titans. So, I mean, that sets it up. We'll just talk kind of quickly about how we see things playing out. Titans-Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Packers-Niners, a classic 90s, late 90s to mid-90s matchup for the conference championship there. Who do you see? I mean, I got Chiefs-Packers, and mainly it's because I feel like the Niners, don't have the experience. It's their first year under this current generation of players. Garoppolo's first playoffs, right? Because last year, well, actually no, he was in the playoffs with the Patriots, but as a backup, he never started. So, I mean, the Niners are really good. They're doing some really innovative things with their run game. But, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is still, top 5 players in the NFL. He's at the quarterback position. He's been there before. He's played in these big games. Yeah, it's on the road in Santa Clara, right? Santa Clara?
Yeah.
But, I mean, all those lifelong Niner fans are all wearing fresh black color rush uniforms. They don't have the gold starter jackets from the 90s. They're this new generation. It's a new generation of lifelong Niner fans. So
right.
It's not going to be as raucous. There'll probably be as many Packer fans there, to be honest.
I think so. I think we're both in agreement. I think the Chiefs beat the Titans.
Yep.
I'm going to disagree. I think the 49ers kind of put away the Packers the way they did earlier this year. It's funny how, you can look like you have not great drafts for a couple of years. And then you make one draft pick and it kind of makes everything else make sense. And that's essentially what the 49ers did this year with Nick Bosa, right? They've drafted D lineman Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas, right? You got all these guys, and they're all good players individually, but none of them were standout, right? Buckner was probably the closest, and he was really good, but, like, you know, he's not going to be an all-pro or anything like that.
Yeah.
You draft Nick Bosa, and he comes in the way he did, and he suddenly you got the best D-line in the league, right? You slide Buckner and Armstead inside. Thomas can be outside. You also have, D Ford out there when he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They just wreak havoc on you, and I just think that, the thing the 49ers do best is they just don't make mistakes. Offensively, they're not a great offense in the sense of, like, they're not the Chiefs, right? I doubt they're going to put up, 28 on you in a quarter, mm-hmm. the way the Chiefs did the Texans. But they don't make mistakes. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball, and they just execute really well. And then defensively, they don't give you a whole lot of time to throw. Their corners are solid, depending on who plays opposite of Sherman. And their linebackers are decent, right? So, I just don't know if the Packers have enough. I don't think Aaron Jones is really going to be able to do a whole lot rushing the ball. And I just don't know if Rodgers is going to have enough time to really throw the ball to anyone outside of Devontae Adams. And that's the scary part, I think.
It's going to be a good game. Definitely the better of the two matchups. Yeah. And probably the winner. I mean, I guess the Chiefs would probably be favored against the Packers. So, I was going to say that the winner of the NFC Championship game is probably going to be the favorite in the Super Bowl regardless, but I think the Chiefs would be favored slightly over the Packers.
Chiefs might be favored over the Niners.
Yeah, depending on how many points they put up. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I can't wait. All going down Sunday. Titans, Chiefs kickoff, 12:05. Packers, Niners, 3:40.
Yep.
Watch it. Okay, what we got? We got a few things to wrap up quickly here. What time is it? Okay, I got about 10 minutes. So, want to talk about the Bachelorgate. Maybe we should save this for another time. Now, let's cover it real fast. So, she's not a bachelorette. She was the girl who won The Bachelor, right? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Some reality TV star. She wins the Millie Maker in the DraftKings tournament. So, it's $1 million to first place. And then one of a friend, I guess, tweets congratulating her husband, the Bachelor, I think, for winning the Millie Maker. Problem is, wasn't his account that won it. So that got all the degenerates thinking, went and checked all the lineups. You can check the lineups. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they can export it to Excel, all the lineups.
I'm sure they can.
Yeah, but they checked each one. I think there's 150 lineup limit.
Yeah,
per account.
It's 150 per account, and per DraftKings, you're not supposed to share information across accounts. You're not supposed to help each other build lineups, that kind of stuff.
Is that written though?
I mean, it's in their terms, right? Like, you're not supposed to, me and you getting together.
I get what you're saying.
To build 300 lineups and then split the winnings is not allowed in DraftKings terms of service.
Right.
Granted, they're in a little bit different situation. It's husband and wife.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't really expect a husband and wife to do things not together if they're both going to, max enter.
Mm-hmm.
I think the concerning thing, and the thing that really shows that there was at least a little bit of, collusion or maximizing their profitability, is that out of the 300 lineups, they found that 298 of them were unique, which if, I bet if you pick two random people and ask them to make 300 lineups, I doubt only two are going to be unique.
Yeah.
That's probably one of those statistical rarities.
Especially with a condensed player pool, because...
Right. And remember, you didn't even have all 32 teams playing. You had 8 teams playing. Yeah. So, and another piece of evidence that they were colluding was I saw a tweet where it kind of broke down the ownership percentages of the players, and there was a clear distinction between the quarterbacks used between the two of them. Yeah.
I mean,
It's essentially like one of them used AFC quarterbacks, one of them used NFC quarterbacks.
Something like that. Had a heavier ownership percentage, and just to explain why this, like, how this works for why it's such a big advantage to be able to have more lineups is especially in this short slate. There was only 4 games, so there's 8 teams to pick from. So there's 8 quarterbacks, 8 running back ones, 8 wide receiver ones, and everybody's picking from the same salary pool. You have a limit. You have to build your lineup, and it's almost like a lotto ticket. Like, like, okay, who's going to be the QB1 on the week? Is it Mahomes? Is it going to be Lamar Jackson? Is it going to be so-and-so? And they're all, like, relatively the same price. And then you're like, okay, I want Derrick Henry, I want Michael Thomas, and then you pick all these randoms. And so, like, Derrick Henry goes off, Michael Thomas goes off, say you pick Mahomes, he goes off. So you got all those number 1 players right, and then you have all these, like, kind of fill-in guys where you're just picking salaries. You need, like, one of those to hit to do it. And if you have more entries, like, say you can have 50 entries. This is just summarizing it as simply as possible. You have 50 entries with those guys who all hit, and then you need, like, to hit the right, like, tight end, hit the right defense. If you have all these different combos of the different, like, tertiary players, then you're at an advantage. And if you could double that, and instead of being limited to 50 entries with those 3 plus, like, these other randoms, you could have 100 or so, because you're using that same big 3 with the other randoms. You have a better probability of hitting, getting the lotto ticket that gets the most points.
Right.
And so that's why it works. That's why it's a huge advantage, and that's why so many people are pissed off about it.
Right.
I don't know what you could do about it, especially since they're husband and wife.
Well, and they had, 2 separate accounts, I believe.
Yeah.
She has played on her account before.
I think what's going to happen is publicly they're going to say they're not paying them out. They'll have them sign, like, a non-disclosure agreement and pay them out, like, under the table.
Maybe
privately, like, come to some sort of settlement, because if DraftKings won't pay them, it's going to be tied up in courts and stuff, and it's going to look really bad for DraftKings, and that's not what they want.
Yeah, I mean, the toughest part of this is, like, if it were like me and you, I think it's pretty easy for DraftKings. They just say, oh, you guys colluded, right? Like,
I think it would be harder for them to prove, though, because...
Well, but I think the problem is it's husband and wife, right? Like, think about, like, what you do with your wife, right? Or, like, if you guys share a hobby, how do you not help each other out in some way?
Yeah.
So I really think it's hard to completely say, like, oh, you can't help your wife out.
Yeah.
Right? Or you can't help your husband out.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to be sexist and think, like, women don't do this.
The funny thing was, people dug up tweets from her that
she hates fantasy football.
She hates fantasy football. She doesn't understand.
Well, there was a thing, like, the week before they won, they did some sort of Bachelor taping, and they asked the guys that were there, what does your wife or your girlfriend hate the most? Yeah. And he wrote down fantasy football. So, there's, circumstantial evidence that points to her not taking an active role in this. But, yeah.
Imagine being, imagine being that where, like, you're the guy who max enters it, you're controlling all 300 lineups, and the wrong lineup wins.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on. Just wanted to talk real quickly about the Mandalorian finale. So this is your spoiler alert.
Again.
Yeah, don't if you haven't seen the Mandalorian finale, that was like 3 weeks ago, and you're way behind because, I don't know, Netflix goes, or I guess not, Disney Plus is not accessible in Indiana. Do not watch this. So I was huge suspect of IG-11 heading into the finale. Baby Yoda gets kidnapped. There was a lot of I laid out the evidence last episode of This Week in the Mix Show. If you didn't see it, go back and watch it. And then gonna summarize it quickly. He goes and rescues Baby Yoda. So not only was he not the one who like ratted on where Baby Yoda was, which is still left up in the air, but he goes and saves him, brings him back to Mando, and then helps them escape this like lava tunnel by sacrificing himself and self-destructing. This got me thinking, so IG-11, symbolic of a Big Sim. I mean, Disney's putting that out there quite clearly, if you ask me. And
real quick, Matrix 4. It's coming out. All right, go.
And so it got me thinking, like, okay, like, yeah, maybe IG-11 set him up and then like wanted to look like the hero. Obviously that's not what Disney's trying to communicate, but I mean, I feel like it's more of a message from Big Sim, like telling me like, we're gonna plant these little seeds in your life. So to make you think, and it did get me to think that, not only like everything bad in my life is because of Big Sim, but also the good things, like little Arya. She may be a product of Big Sim if we're living in a simulation. So, who am I to question Big Sim, point the finger at them, because we're at the mercy of him either way. And then at that point I realized this is exactly what they want you to think. So you get off their trail and stop blowing that whistle. So fuck you, Big Sim, fuck you, IG-11. You're still frauds. I don't like what you're doing, and the world needs to know about it. So the fight continues. Good try, but gotta stay shifty, can't be predictable. We're gonna hit you harder than ever in 2020. That is my promise to everybody in the mixer, all the anti-simmers out there. Do you have anything to add about the Mandalorian finale?
I'm good.
Sweet. Did you watch any of the Epstein stuff, the ABC special, the 60 Minutes?
Nope.
Watch the 60 Minutes one.
All right.
And maybe we'll talk about that next.
Okay.
Next
homework
episode. To do. Because he didn't kill himself, or maybe he did. Little teaser. We're done. See you guys.